shine off our heads. Yes. He doesn't pay mine. I said, you'll have to pay Dave's airfare when he comes up, but
only from Brisbane to Townsville.
Yeah, but eventually, I said, you know, you'll need to buy his consulting time. But I said, because Mike Babarich used to work for him, and Mike used to write reports. I said, this guy taught Mike Babarich. I said, we're talking the creme and the creme. And Tony said, yeah. But did you hear they've just bought another dealership?
Whereabouts?
What a YT dealership somewhere.
Whereabouts?
Oh, Steve Feldman.
Townsville?
Yeah, not in Townsville, somewhere back at Burke. Steve been trying to get him on the ERA forever. Is this all we're going to have?
No, they're trying to get us in.
Are we? Oh.
We've still got 3 minutes.
I know. We can start now.
Mate, if you've seen me tap dance, this floor could cave.
Hey, David,
I'm a chance to start.
Way down here. I can't even
if
see
the audience is
there.
not active, I might start tap dancing.
There you go, mate. You guys got access to Pulse?
We what?
Okay.
Oh, Rick threw it on that, didn't he? Yeah.
So what we're going to do is we're going to go through some stuff, and I just thought it might be easier when everyone gets in here. But if you can log into Pulse, because some of the reports you might not be able to see from here. So what I'll do is there'll be someone from Pentana here, and we've got a demo site you can go and have a look. Just so if you want to see the reports a little closer, that was all. So so you're not on Pulse. You don't know about Pulse? Oh, okay.
Wow.
No. Pulse is just one of the business intelligence tools we use because we've got a diverse audience.
Yeah, I know.
Big dealers with multiple locations, and small dealers, single location, single franchise.
We will get a few
depends
stragglers, but there's
which one best suits. So I'm surprised. I'll talk to Glenn and make sure you get that. Okay.
31 today. Cricket at 1:30 is India versus Bangladesh at the G, which is why it's going to be packed. Yep. It's the I think it's 1:30 telecast.
Can you
2:30
get old mate from Aussie Motors onto the Pulse demo site? He's never heard of Pulse.
Well, it'll be a. I mean, the way South Africa.
I love doing that.
Sri Lanka, they're going to be hard to beat, but India set the benchmark. It's in years gone by, you've said these teams are looking good.
You've logged on?
In any day.
How you going, Russell? Yes, I did.
Tomorrow, and they could win that. They're
See,
them in the West
what he
Indies,
doesn't realise is in the good old days, I used to do the Riverland, Mildura, Broken Hill, and back to Adelaide. It used to be the triangle.
If you go outside
and
the area and walk back,
it was good because
you
had no phone coverage, or in the real early days, no pager coverage back then.
To yourself.
But you what? You'd fly up now, would you? Business class?
Try Mildura.
Yeah. I could just imagine. Oh, just to Mildura. Just to Mildura, is it? Oh wow.
Yeah,
oh, he doesn't. I don't want to see too many customers. Yeah, I don't want to see too many customers. Okay. Hockey. Hey Dick, how you doing?
Hey Paul.
Good. You use Exec, don't you?
Yep.
Heavily, but do you use Pulse at all?
No.
Have you looked at it?
I've looked at it.
Can you? And I'm just the reason I'm asking is just trying to get some people on the tables logged into Pulse. If you don't know, if you haven't got your login, there's a demo login that the guys have got that'll help you get into it. Yep. And it's only mainly so that some of the reports that we might refer to up here might be a bit easier to see them on a tablet if you've got the tablet.
Oh, mate.
This is my co-star. I was going to crack the joke about.
Hey, I heard you up there. Yeah.
Hey.
We'll just wait one more minute for others to get into the room. I think punctuality, people are on different time zones. My watch is usually 1 minute fast, but I've got 1 minute past 11. Oh, hang on. Sorry, Paul, we need you up here too.
Are we on?
I think so.
Hello? Well, that works. Just before we start, if I could just, anybody that can get access to Pulse on their mobile device, if they could try and just log on. There's some Pentana people on the tables. We've got a demo site that you can grab into. The only reason I thought it will be handy if you get in there, some of the reports we're going to look at you may not be able to see, but if you can get in on your mobile device, you can have a little closer look, if that makes sense. We're ready to roll? Okay. First of all, I'll just give you a little bit of an introduction of myself. My name is Paul Dienelt, and I've been with Pentana, Diatron, Reynolds, and whatever other name we've called ourselves for 30 years this year. My background has been, or prior to joining Pentana, I was 10 years a dealership accountant, and then 30 years with Pentana. I think I've sold, installed most of the major products that we've had through the journey. So I guess some people think I'm a bit of an old veteran or a croc or something, I don't know, but I'm one of those. I just wanted to give a little bit of an overview of what we're going to go through today in business intelligence. We want to understand what is it used for, what is business intelligence, how can I use it in my dealership, what can I do to make more money out of using that intelligence. I'm going to share a couple of real life experiences that I've had consulting in this area for the last 3 years, where we've been to dealerships and found some information, looked at some of these tools, and we've taken action to improve the business. So I will now introduce you to, now I was going to crack a joke, but I don't know whether I will, Dave McLeod, and I was going to say, if you get confused at who's who, I'm the guy with the hair. Dave has obviously shaved his head, so if there's any confusion. So I'll put you onto Dave, and we'll be flipping back and forth through the presentation.
So thank you, Paul, but you'll notice that our hair's still at the same height, so my chin and his hair. My name is David McLeod. I've been with Pentana Solutions for 25 years. I've worked in a variety of roles. I started off in programming, so I do understand the ERA product very well. What I'm going to show you, and we'll go through a little bit about today, my current role is back in business intelligence. So I was in business intelligence. I moved out for a couple of years into that team called Innovations, worked a little bit overseas, and I'm back in the business intelligence area of Pentana. Now, I'll be a bit biased here, but I think business intelligence is one of the greatest things that companies have, that you have access to. So today what we'll do is we'll just go through why we're going to use BI, who uses BI, what are you currently using it for. I'll go through some real examples. Now, we'll use a couple of products here. Paul will talk a lot about the Pulse product that we have. I'll talk a little bit about Exec, and we'll cross over a little bit. But important part is it's examples of what you should be looking for in your business. Things that will save you time, things that is all about making your life easier, delivering better results for your business, and ultimately making staff happier, which is one of the key components for being able to succeed in business. I'll go through a couple of tips and tricks with Executive. Those that do use Executive, I look around the room and I do know a few people have the Executive ERA product. So I'll show you a couple of tips and tricks, and we'll talk about what's in the future, what's in the future for Executive. And finally, we'll break up for some Q&A. And so we'll be about a 40-minute presentation, 45-minute presentation. So as you're going through, think of any questions you've got, write them down. So why use business intelligence? Most importantly, speed and timing of information. Everyone has an idea. Being able to act upon that idea here and now, or when you decide to, is crucial. If you have to wait 3 days to get the information, it may be too late to respond to a customer. Source of truth. Business intelligence provides you with a single source of truth. I know a lot of people, and Excel's a very popular product that most people use. But with Excel, you end up with multiple copies, multiple items. It's great to be able to have a single source of truth and to understand and to hold accountable the rest of the business to ensuring that the information within that actually, within your DMS, is actually reported directly and stored in the DMS so that when you're looking at it, you don't have to filter it, no filtering. Accuracy of data. Along with the source of truth, you'll get accuracy of data. User empowerment. So BI, business intelligence, the big advantage it has is it gives you the power to be able to look at data, look at your information, look at your business from differing perspectives, such as what you can do with slicing and dicing. I'm not only interested in what my inventory looks at, I'm looking at it by location, I'm looking at it by model, I'm looking at it by car line, by make. Broadcasting to the right people. With business intelligence, you can actually send data to email it out via HTML or PDF or output to Excel and send it to the right people. And I'll show you a couple of tips and tricks at the end where you can just email that to the right person. And most importantly, peace of mind, sanity, checking gut feels. A lot of people here are entrepreneurs. Some are looking after the financials associated with entrepreneurs. And part of that is when you're running a $50 million, $100 million business, you're in charge of 50 to 100 people. Time is crucial. And often your gut feel is what you utilize. Business intelligence gives you the ability to actually sanity check that gut feel, to check it. We're in a very changing environment today. Social media, data from other sources such as Google and IPs. Smartphones are now the thing of the future, where that becomes their mobile office. So the principles that you thought of 5, 7 years ago don't necessarily apply today. And the ability to actually sanity check those through the use of BI is crucial. So what are some of the tools? Just throw answers out from the audience. What are some of the tools you currently use? Nothing. No one uses it. Excel? Who uses Excel? Zekira? Excellent. I like that. Pulse? Any others? PowerPoint? Form of business intelligence. ERA Report Writer? Who downloads ERA Report Writers? Excellent. All forms of business intelligence. So what should you be using BI for? So today's presentation, I'll go through about 8 items that are actually key elements. We're not going to go through every item. To give you some idea, Executive ERA's got about 130 different reports in it. What I'll show you is a couple of tips and tricks that you can utilise with some of the graphs, and later on we'll just go through what are the key elements that when I'm visiting dealers, they say, what should I be using it for? How often should I be checking this information? So for inventory management, age and mix of stock, obsolescence, crucial. Big inventory, a lot of money tied up in your inventory, making sure you got the right mix, what is selling to what is actually in the yard, and also obsolescence, identifying your parts obsolescence and being able to free up that capital, put it onto eBay or via Handle, and free up some capital for reinvestment in the business. Purchasing decisions in used cars, so not only what we've got in inventory, but what we're going to actually purchase, what should we be stocking. Key performance indicators, we'll go through a few KPIs. Financial performance and trends. So business intelligence, all about saving you time to be able to get the information out to your key management, key personnel, so that they can influence the results of your business and spend more time managing the business as opposed to preparing reports. Comparative analysis, comparing one month to the next month. being able to say, this was a good month, what was the difference? Was it our sales revenue volume? Was it our gross mix? Was it our expenses were too high? Things like that that you can actually look at and get the information quickly. Sales performance and trends. Part of BI is you want to be able to say, how are we going? I've got 10 minutes free. How are we going? What did we do last year? How did we compare that? What are the performances? And part of the slicing and dicing that I'll show you, you can apply that to say, well, okay, let's have a look at our retail sales for the last 12 months. Let's have a look at our fleet sales for the last 12 months. Gross margin analysis is another one, being able to analyse how your gross is performing. And exceptions, profit leaks. They all happen. They're the exceptions, the non-norms.
Okay, this is a pulse screen, and I look at it, and when I first viewed this screen, I thought, wow, what a lot of information in one single screen. Now this is what I would call a macro view. This is how a dealer sitting in an airport somewhere will look and see where his business is up to whilst he's away. And if you look at each of these individual slides as we go through, we can look at the new vehicle inventory, we can look at our used vehicle inventory, it's breaking it by age. The other slides are breaking it by status, so I can see where they're at. I can see my new car sales, and I use this little button. That little button there will flick between this month and last month. So at this point in time, we were looking at 3 sales with our gross profit of 300 odd bucks a car. I can't read that, 554 per car. And the same in our used car department, and so on into our service and parts. Now the important thing is this is just a straight macro. Now we can click down through these views, and that's why I said if you get access to it, you can have a look, and we will go through some more slides later on showing you a little more depth. But right now I want to look at perhaps what we can do in our vehicle inventory, so we can focus on stock, age and days, mix, colours, transmission types, locations, and so on. So if we take that one slide there, it's showing us our inventory broken into the age. If I tap on it, it explodes it out so you can see it a little better. Then by tapping on it again, it then breaks it into my different makes and models. So I'm only looking at this part in anything under 15 days by model. And from there you can tap down to the actual vehicles themselves. So you can see how important it is that you can have a look at just a quick snapshot of where you are with Pulse, with that front dealer principal dashboard.
One important thing about Pulse is, Paul said you could put it on your phone. It's written in HTML5, it's designed internally by Pentana, and literally that means that it resizes to your screen. It's designed for something as a quick glance. If you want a more in-depth one at the moment, you look for executive. And if we just choose, if we end up having a look at the new aged analysis graph in executive, what you will get, and most people will be familiar, is a pie chart having a look at the individual graph. Okay, so I can see and I can drill down individually into the, I can drill down, which is the...
a little button here, a bit of technical for you there, that one there.
Okay, the middle one.
Yeah.
You can drill down into each of the pie charts, into each of the slices of it, or you can actually drill down on the graph. But what I'll show you is what you can do to term slicing and dicing. Does anyone in the room have an idea what slicing and dicing is? Okay, put up your hand if you don't know what slicing and dicing is. Okay, I'm just making sure you're awake and alive. Okay. So slicing and dicing is all about, I've got one view of my inventory, I've got a view at the moment, and I'm now wanting to look at it from a different perspective. Easiest way to explain it might be if you look at a Rubik's Cube. Okay, looking at one face of the Rubik's Cube, I've got yellow, or whatever the colour is. If I turn that Rubik's Cube around, a turn, I'm looking at a different perspective of the same information. So in this particular case, we've got vehicle inventory. Further down, you'll know there's makes, there's ages, there's car lines. And so slicing and dicing is actually giving me the ability to go, I'm just going to move that It's 3 simple steps. And one of them, you can actually leave it to make it 2. So the first step, and I'll show you a practical demo. Here's a video. So the first step is that was that graph. First step's open up the window pane. That's just a basic thing. You can leave that window pane open if you want a little bit less real estate. So it's really 2 steps. Anything in the description columns, anything in the hidden columns, you can actually click and drag. So you just highlight it and drag it over the top of the graph. So slicing and dicing, I can actually look at by location. This is something you should be using all the time. This is the what-if scenarios. This is what happened here. Looking at it from a different perspective, instantly I get a feeling, and a stronger feeling, that is it my retail sales? Is it my fleet sales? Are my grosses high? Are my grosses low? And you can see here we're going into car lines. We're looking at it by make. And it's simply, everyone can do this today. Now, the only thing is, if you're running the latest release of Executive, you get to see every column, any description column, any hidden column can be dragged and dropped. If you're not running the latest release of Executive, and there's about a dozen of you that are, you can only do what's in the scenario. So you'll see there's a little scenario that was down the left-hand side. But you should all, as far as I'm concerned, you should all be using and making sure that this is one thing you'd look at, and they're your what-if scenarios. If we go further into one of the other items within Executive, it's the aged parts inventory report. So we talked about inventory management, and now we're looking at a little bit of obsolescence. So the aged parts inventory report, we can bring it up and run the report, and you'll get some results. But what I'm going to show you is that little filter button, little thing that looks like a funnel. It'll pop up and you can do a simple filter. No complexity, simple filter. I'm interested in looking at my inventory where the quantity on hand is greater than 1 and my average cost is greater than $200. You have the flexibility, choose whatever you want. The reason why I say quantity greater than 1 is because you might want some to be left on the shelf. When you get that, you end up with, this is the report that you would get that's filtered. I suddenly have a manageable component of just 26 part lines that I need to look at. But that represents $30,000 worth of inventory. $30,000 worth of inventory in my parts department. Now there's 3 categories there. The top one is by last sale date, so that's looking at one view of your inventory, looking at it from the perspective of purely last sales date. So when did I last sell it? If I've got 100 on the shelf and I sold it yesterday, those 100 will be counted in the 0 to 3 months. But the WAMs, the one down the bottom, weighted average monthly sales, it calculates how often you would sell that. And that's effectively your coverage. So when you have 100 on the shelf and you're selling 1 a day, you have 100 days worth of inventory, and it will classify that into the 100 days. Now, all reports within Exec filters and simply drag and drop. So they are as simple as possible, and I'm going to hand over to Paul.
Beautiful. Now. So just continuing on the Executive area, one of the best reports that I have used in it is the used car stock profiling report. Now this is also available in new cars, so I've just chosen used cars today. So in there, we can come through this report, and what it's trying to do is take my current inventory and compare it to what I've sold over the last X months, and in this case, what we're asking is the last 6 months, but you can determine it. Up the top, you can determine whether it's vehicles in stock, as well as on loan, whatever classifications you've got on your inventory. And down the bottom, it'll prompt you for how many days coverage. So, you know, what in a perfect world do I want to keep in my used car inventory? So as I said, this is one of the best reports there are. Now, we've squashed this down. Believe me, if we actually had it with all the data across it, it'd be around all the rooms. But there's some really important stuff in here that I look at. Is first of all, it's categorising my inventory by 37 vehicles by age first, then dollar value, then make and model. And there's actually a fourth one, which is source of supply. Where did I get the car from? Because it knows whether you've traded it in or you've purchased it. And then what it's doing is it's saying how many have I got in stock, how many have I sold in that particular range, okay? what is the ROI on it? What's my return on investment? Some really important things, and this one over here called gross profit. This is the accounting gross profit, not the sales gross, but the actual gross that's been on the vehicle. So you can look at that report and say, I can analyse my inventory and see where I am with my used car inventory. But I guess the thing that, or the experience that I had was, I was sitting talking to a dealer, and he'd just, we were just talking about stuff, and he said his business has gone well. He just had a bag sale or main event, whatever you want to call it. And he'd depleted most of his stock of used cars. It was such a great weekend, he'd sold them all. And I said, so what are you going to do to replace them? He said, well, you know, I know the X-Trails are really good cars. We're going to get some of those. But all of a sudden, after 4 or 5 vehicles, it was like, yeah. And I said, well, what else are you going to replace it with? And he was basically leading me to think that his buyer would go and buy those cars, and it was really a gut feel. Now, I said to him, let me have a look at this filtering that Dave just talked about in a second, you know, the little funnel. So I took that inventory report, and I simply said to it, give me every vehicle that I have sold where I've made more than $3,000 and has been in stock less than 45 days. Now we have a pick list of what vehicles we need to go out purchase. That list, and I understand, you know, you're not going to get every one of them, but that list is at least some technology using business intelligence tools to allow us to see what we've sold, what we've got, and potentially what we want to stock. Likewise, you can change that report to, I'll go back to it, you can change that report and put any date in there. All I did is change that little constant to prompt. So when they go and save this report and it comes back, it asks the dealer, okay, what sort of gross profit are you looking for? How many days was it in inventory? So he can modify the report simply by 2 questions. It is most probably, in my experience, one of the best ways for a dealer to go buy cars. Now, if we look down the track a little, we're talking about getting mobile appraisal forms, mobile appraisals where a person can go out and appraise a vehicle. How much more important would it be if that, once they identified the vehicle, that they had how many days it took to sell that car, how much we actually paid for it, what the average cost, and what gross. So when they're actually appraising a vehicle, they're looking at their stock, their sales history, and trying to make a decision on how much you're going to buy that car for. This is one of the best examples I can give you. When they were asked me to do this presentation, I came straight to this report because this is business intelligence at its best. We're using, most probably, Dave will tell me, how many files does it look at? Inventory, customer, sales history.
That was unscripted.
Yeah. It was here somewhere.
7.
There's about 7 different, 7 multiple files, so that the people who are using Report Writer, yes, all that information's in the system, and if you actually use the Report Writer, you could get it out, but it would be a lot of work. Whereas this is so simple, so easy, and as I said, it's meant for new cars as well. The new car people will look at, 90 days stock that the manufacturer, and I understand nowadays the manufacturer tells you what you're going to keep. You don't tell them what you want. But likewise, it tells you what you've sold, what's more popular, what colours are more popular. The red ones might be more popular than the white ones. All that information sits in here and can be extracted pretty simply using Executive.
Thank you, Paul.
No.
Just one other point on that. What are you making great gross on that you have no stock of? So, for example, there was one dealer who the Honda, the CRV, they had no stock, but they were making $4,500 a unit. And what it was when they spoke to the buyer, he said it's going for about $800 more at the auctions that I'm willing to pay. So it was an education process to say, well, hang on a second, we wouldn't have had that. Have a look at this. And for $800 more, I'm sure you'd be happy to pocket $4,500. So there's examples of what can be done, the power of business intelligence. You say, what is this situation? What have I got? let me just think of this. And this is all done at your desk, from home, via the internet. We won't show you about the internet one, but there's a browser version. So let's just go next on to financial performance. Profit and loss reporting, balance sheet, comparative analysis, forecasting against what you're doing for budgets, consolidated financial results. Those items are all available, and I'm not going to go into those. Everyone who runs Excel usually runs it for that. What I am going to talk about is KPIs, your key performance indicators, because these are the items that are the percentage of what you're making, the gross per retail unit, the gross per employee. These are the ones that impact your business dramatically because your revenue might be right, but it turns out your gross margins are low or you're paying too much in commissions. And that's where key performance indicators. Now within exec, and we do budget uploads straight into ERA, so you can, from Excel, we'll upload the budgets. But within exec, your key performance indicators are yours to determine. They're configurable. You actually, it's a little bit of work. We've got a couple of customers that I've trained up on what they need to do, and it literally takes them an hour's training to understand what it is, and then they usually make 2 calls to say, how do I do this formula? How do I get this calculation? And then it's your system. You can actually look at your key performance indicators by either, and sorry, I'll just show you quickly, the KPI trend report or the KPI comparison report. You then have the ability to say, okay, what month am I doing? Am I running actuals or budgets? Am I running month-to-date or year-to-date results? Or do I want fiscal or a rolling 13-month scenario? And what you would get is a simple report where you will have either the total dealership down the left-hand side, and then you have your 13-month trended, and you'll have key performance indicators that you consider, or alternatively, you'll have side-by-side branch comparisons. All of that is available, and you should be utilising that within Executive.
Okay, I've got to go back onto my favourite little Pulse product. I just want to dive into a couple of them a little deeper now. This is meant to work on it works best on an iPad, so drag and drop to resort, all sorts of wonderful things, but I just thought it was worthwhile spending some time having a look at what's available. So on here I've pushed the used car sales analysis, and whereas on that front screen the little button toggles you between months, here it shows you this month as a comparison to the previous month. So quite clearly you can start to see whether or not your gross profit that you're making per vehicle is in line with what your expectations are. Is it up or is it down? A simple, straightforward look. This one here is service department, and the service department was an interesting one, because what I was looking for when I worked on this deal was the gross margins on labour. You know, the 78% that the KPI is. So that was what I was looking for here. So if you notice that little button there, that happens to be that one. If you are on Pulse, if you put your finger on it or click it with the mouse and then drag it to this top section, it will resort the data based on exactly what you've asked it to sort. So for instance, if I dragged category description, what it's going to do is say customer, and it's going to have labour, parts, miscellaneous, petrol, oils, lubricants. So you can start to look at the same data differently by simply just dragging and dropping those items on there. But again, as I said, what I was looking for here is I just want to check to see whether my margins are right. The same in the parts department. So I've used the sales description as my resort, and what I was looking for here is how much am I making out of my panel sales. So you can see here Mercedes-Benz, Mitsubishi, Mazda and Nissan. So down here I'm checking those margins. Here's my retail. It does scroll. There's about 3 or 4 different screens of information. So again, from a macro perspective, this is a simple, easy, quick tool to see whether or not we're on tune with what we expected. The next part is this one here. Suspicious transactions. It sounds a bit devious and horrible, but it's not as bad as what it is. What it is in the system, I want to know what exceptions, what are my people doing that I can't be by a screen every day to see what's happening. And what this is showing me is any inventory adjustments that they've made in parts, where they've gone to the bin, they've found there's 5, they've looked at the inventory system and there's actually 4, so they've gone and made an adjustment. So this is just reporting how much have they done of that, and that happens every day, and it's not suspicious, but it's something we can check on. But the one that drew my attention was this one here, parts override. So this means in the parts department, they've put a parts invoice up, and where it's come up with a price, they've actually gone to the part sale price and changed it. And it just seemed like 1,092 was a lot of parts changes, given that we were only part way through the month. So what I did is I clicked on that graph, and it came up with this information. Now, what I was looking is, was there a particular customer that was getting a special deal? So I resorted it by customer, and guess what I found? Thousands of eBay. Now, I went down to the parts department, and I was educated that there is a thing called an eBay store, and they're selling multiples of parts. I'm talking tens of thousands of dollars a month. What the guy was doing is he was receipting or coming in the morning, and there's my eBay sales that I've made the night before. He was raising a parts invoice, and he was then changing the price of the part to agree with what he'd sold it for on eBay. All quite legitimate. We then sat down and said, well, hang on, 5-Star Hub Handle will do that transaction completely independently. There's no interface or no interaction from the parts manager at all. So he doesn't have to spend hours in the morning or during the course of the day lining up his eBay sales. So what did we do as a result of it? So we introduced Handle, and then the parts manager or the parts person, instead of spending all of his hours changing part numbers, he's now looking at his eBay store and the content and the amount of parts he's got there, the look and feel of it. He's dedicating all that time, and I can report back to you that when I went back to the dealer, it's a multiple that he's increased his sales on the internet. And it started out of this simple little thing called Pulse, where I thought there was something weird going on with parts changes. The only other one I just put up just as a more of an electronic view of what Clearer does for you. I mean, most of us now have accepted the fact that Clearer works, and it just ticks away in the background. What I think when we first introduced Clearer, we worked out that it was about 20 minutes per invoice, 20 minutes per invoice to process it. The guy rings up, says, I want one of those. Yep, I have one of those. He raises a picking slip, picks it, ships it, invoices it. It's quite a time-consuming exercise. When we introduced Clearer, that removed all of that, a bit like Handle did with our eBay scenario. What this is telling me is how much am I actually selling and buying. So don't forget, not only do you sell parts to other people buy from you. So on here, we just check to see exactly what sort of sales we've had, and you can see it's quite significant both by manufacturer. The only thing that I'm trying to get the guys to put on there is the number of invoices, because it's a really important part of that information is not only the numbers, because whether a parts invoice has 1 item on it or 10 items on it, the amount of time needed to process it is about the same. It's, yes, there's more time to go and pick the bits, but actually physically do the paperwork, it's around about the same. So it's important to know the numbers, and then you can work out what Clearer is actually doing for you in your business. Now I'm going to hand over to Dave.
Thanks, Paul. A couple of other things just about that is these 2 items up here, printing and exporting. So the underlying data you can print or export out to Excel if you wanted to be able to have a look at it. So just a couple of tips and tricks for those of you that run business intelligence. Reviewing your system, making sure that your configuration and your setups match it. If you take on a new site, you might have a new location inside the group side of things. You'll have group reporting, but you may decide you want brand reporting as well. Single brand becomes multiple brand. It's configuration to be able to change that to make it multiple brand. It makes it easier for you to then not have to click on filtering, but to actually be able to run your reports a little bit better. Graphs, slicing and dicing. If you learn one thing out of this, for those of you that have executive, slice and dice. Filtering, simple filtering, that empowers you to be able to choose to remove information that you don't want, some outliers that you might consider non-impactful for that part of the report that you're looking at. Setting up email groups. So there's an overnight scheduler that you can automatically send reports out, financial reporting, quick reporting, out to anyone you want. Set up an email group and then you're empowered as to who goes in and out of that group as opposed to individual email names. Customise the menus. A lot of menus can be quite, I would go into this menu, out of that menu. There is the ability for a custom menu. You land the people at one page, they run their 7 favourite icons, and that's it. They still have access to the others, but they don't need to go in and out of menus in order to be able to see it. And use the scheduler or the overnight scheduler that just runs every night. Run that to send reports to staff, and you can do that at specific times. You can run it at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. At 3:10, everyone knows that in their email box, they'll be expecting certain reports. We've got some customers that do that, and literally 5:30 the scheduler runs, 5:45 I get a phone call if it hasn't completed.
You pushed the wrong button.
I pushed the wrong button, okay? I just wanted to see if you were there. Yeah. So just talking about the new release. What's new in the next release? And for those of you who are running executive, if you want, just contact one of the guys with the iPads and they'll be able to put your name down and we'll contact you to be able to upgrade you to the next release.
And the same with Pulse. If you haven't got access to Pulse or you don't know how to access Pulse, just talk to one of the guys that are around the place or come up and see me and we'll get you onto Pulse as soon as possible.
The new release, one of the things you would get is the overnight schedule is faster. For those of you that run big sites, multiple locations, you can actually now have multiple components running at the same time. Concurrent usage, concurrent running of the scheduler is much easier. Your scheduler finishes it, in multiple times faster. So those that are finishing, look at the time your scheduler finishes, 7 o'clock in the morning. It'll be finished by 3 o'clock in the morning. Export data and reports directly to Excel. So that's one of the things. So simply from the menu, you simply go File, Send to Excel. The data or the report formatted will be sent to Excel. Graphs allow slicing and dicing on all fields, so we went through that. There's just a smaller way of doing it. So up the top, the description columns is in the new release. You just drag and drop. Also those hidden columns, the ones just here. Oops, I'll go back one.
Wrong button.
Thank you. These hidden columns, they're all available to be dragged and dropped. And for the value columns, you simply just drag. If you want to see the inventory value of all that, at the moment that's a unit count, but if you want to see the inventory value, you simply drag the value columns onto the graph as well. Execution times on complex queries. The system now provides, if you've got a complex query that's built, as we said, Paul mentioned that the used vehicle stock profile is utilising multiple files. It's a very complexly built report, and we can now identify the execution times on each of the extraction sections to determine whether we need to put an index within here or we need to do something to make a process faster. So there you'll see the node execution time, which is one of the complex components, and the total execution time being 15 seconds. Ranking and sorting functions at data levels. So now when you drill down in the graphs and you get down to the actual data, you can now click on the heading and simply sort. Any of the items there you can sort within the data, so you don't have to necessarily now export that out to Excel to determine what the ranking component is. Now, that's all there today. That's all available today. But what does the future of BI look like? And we'll leave that for a 5-minute discussion. But the future of BI is all visual. At the moment, you're looking at reports, a lot of different things. And the future of BI will be massive visual improvements such as heat maps. So there, the instant thing you look at when you're looking at a heat map is you can see the yellow is like really hot. red is hot, and the blue is cool. So that might well be where are your customers coming from a service component. Being able to look at that without going through lists and lists by postcodes, you can actually see the regions as to where they are. Where do you want to do your marketing to in order to increase your sales? So heat maps are going to be a big release, big future for BIs. As we also talk about visual improvements such as word analytics. So just looking at that, you can see that the word business analytics is the biggest, and therefore, if it happened to be something like a customer survey you sent out, it would be the most common words that were sent back to you, and you could then look at that. Improved mobility, smartphones, tablets. Your smartphone's going to be your office of the future. Your ability to actually just look at that, sanity check it, check things, link it to email, and fire off an email to someone about it is crucial. It sits in your pocket, it's easy to carry around, and you can use it everywhere. You saw the Era Power presentation where smartphones and tablets, device independent is crucial. In Pulse, it's HTML5, which means it is responsive and responsive web design, which means if you turn it sideways, turn it around, expand it, it actually makes it easier to view. Looking at it on a tablet side of things. A couple of other things that are there is social collaboration. So social collaboration, you get a result and you suddenly say, that result I want an answer from. And social collaboration will be put into the future of BI, where you will actually be able to attach a comment or attach something to a report, and that then gets distributed to everyone so that they can add to the story. This makes it for mobility crucial, because you now no longer have to get on the phone. You can actually just overnight get the results and have a look and determine what the response is overall for that business. So in summary, I just want to talk about what business intelligence currently provides. We know it's fast, accurate, truthful information. It empowers the user. You actually slice and dice, you actually filter, you have the choices as to what you're doing with your business intelligence. It starts off summary information to detailed information in some of the reports or in the graphs where you're looking at it. You can drill into the piece of the pie, or you could slice and dice on the actual view that you're currently looking at. And it provides exception reporting. So we can see with profit exceptions and stuff, looking at things where you're suddenly saying, I am only interested in where my gross was less than 60%, or my labour component was less than that. Does actuals, budgets and comparisons, and sorting and filtering of data, and making sure that you publish reports to the right people. And for those that still love Excel, which is probably 50% of the room, easy interfaces into Excel to make it easier for you to feel controlled, empowered in there. Does anyone have any? Thank you. Questions from the audience? We're at 45 minutes.
Spot on. Done.
Yes. Yep. Yes, that is ERAnet. Yes.
Yeah. All the information is available in ERA. What you would have to do is get several dictionaries to be made up. But if you wanted to go through and pull all the vehicles that had sold in less than 45 days, you could do that, but you may not be able to get what the accounting gross was, because that's in another file. So that's why executive is, as Dave says, slices and dices. It takes bits of information from everywhere to bring it in a format easy to use. But executive ERA is a very, very moderately priced product.
Ross.
Is there...
Oh, hello, Ross Semple.
Yeah.
Is there plans to put the development of Era Power and Pulse being part of that? Is there any planning direction to move executive into that environment to do away with this core view thing?
Excellent question. And
short answer is yes, but we don't know when.
it would be probably a smaller subset of key components that you would want.
And you've got to remember the project Era Power, there is so much to it that something like executive may just have to wait until we get accounting in there, make sure that service parts and all that front end stuff looks good, and eventually something to do with parts. So it's a matter of time, Ross.
It is a wonderful tool, and I strongly recommend it, but
Yep.
it is very expensive.
Moderate.
Down the back.
Is that Ditmar, is it, down the back there? I can't see you, Ditmar. See, what we're trying to deal with here is we've got a variety of dealer groups that we use. Some are multiple locations, multiple brands, and in some cases, what you really need to look at is executive if you want that sort of slicing and dicing. For a smaller dealer, Pulse works well. I've got dealers with multiple locations. In fact, that business study was multiple location, multiple brand. It's I guess what it depends on how you're set up, and I really don't remember how it is all set up there. So maybe we'll talk about it afterwards.
Yeah, Pulse is just designed for a quick view, but also what you saw with being able to sort by category or sort by heading, that can often filter out and get you the individual branch that you're interested in. Any other questions?
Good.
Thank you very much.
We're going.
We'll just do a few housekeeping items just before we go to lunch. Lunch is actually going to be served in this room, but there's a buffet style lunch and buffets are available at reception. Due to your feedback, the Era Power sessions will be rerun at 1 p.m. So the Era Power service session, Era Power showroom session, and Era Power IT session will be rerun. So that gives you the ability to be able to look at the other session in case you were one and not the other. In addition to that, just to clarify to everyone, I think one of the questions we got from feedback, Era Power is the upgrade is part of your maintenance if you're using ERAnet showroom or ERAnet service. So there is no additional maintenance increase if you're an existing ERAnet showroom or service user. So just to repeat the rooms, you could have clapped a bit more. Sorry? It's a staged implementation, and what I can do is we can just talk to the guys that are actually going through it and we'll take you into detail. The Era Power IT session, we'll actually talk to you about that as well. So just to be sure, to make everyone's clear, at 1 p.m. the Era Power service session will be conducted by Evan Turner in room M2. The Era Power showroom session conducted by Paul Starkey in room M3. The Era Power IT session presented by our CIO, Sean Brown, in room M4. The parts session, how top dealers are increasing profit, presented by Colin Evans, is still being held in this room for those parts users. So now we'll break to lunch, and lunch is for an hour, and we'll reconvene at 1 o'clock, so lunch is in here. Thank you, everyone. Sorry, guys, just quickly, one more thing I actually just forgot. If anyone has seen a pair of glasses anywhere, could you please place them at reception? If anyone has seen a pair of glasses, please place them at reception.